What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Hage. I'm here to talk to y'all about warm-ups today. Alright, so this is a requested video from one of my clients herself. So Jen, I got you. I wanted to put this video together quick since it's hot, fresh on my mind. And so here we go. So without further ado, warm-ups. Why should you care about warm-ups? What do you need to be looking for in your warm-ups? Why do you even do warm-ups to start? All right, so first of all, I'm gonna try and give you guys some material to go read up on. I'm gonna probably be commenting and putting up the name here in the video itself, but I'm gonna likely write it out in the caption, or I'll put it somewhere here in the video or in the description somewhere, right? So first things first, why do we stretch, and what should our approach be when we're thinking about stretching or warming up? So I think a good place to start is in the different types of stretching. Now there's two major types of stretching. There's static and dynamic, and you've probably heard multiple times already why you're going to want to do different ones at different times, but just to give you a quick recap, we're going to want to do dynamic stretches typically before we warm up or before we exercise, and then we're going to want to do static stretches typically after we're done exercising. Now, rules are meant to be broken, so I'll say that really you should listen to what feels best for you. Technically, if you foam roll and you're holding toes out positions, and doing like hamstring stuff on the foam roller, then you're going to be doing some kind of even though you're rolling on the foam roller, you're holding that hamstring in a stretch position, and it's not really dynamically moving a whole lot except for maybe at the glute insertion or something like that. But obviously there's ways that you could be thinking that you're dynamically stretching, but you're really doing static stretches dynamically, right? So there's, like I said, rules are meant to be broken. If you're going to be doing stretches before you exercise, what we want to be thinking about really is our ability to perform what we're going to be doing that day. So for instance, if you're going to be doing legs, right? You're doing specifically, let's say, lunges, right? You're going to be doing weighted lunges. You're going to be doing barbell lunges. It's going to be good for you to actually warm up with body weight lunges, right? Naturally. What we want to be able to do is make sure that our stretches are in line with the range of motion that we're going to need for that day. Now, this is something that I learned from Westside Barbell. I'll put that right up here. They've got a shitload of training material, but if you don't want to go through and read all that shit, just watch the documentary. It's fire. Let's zoom in a little bit here. That should be better. All right, so now reason being is because we don't want to overstretch and over lengthen these muscles. Now there's a bunch of research out there that says that muscles don't really lengthen or shorten. It's just whether they're tense or relaxed, and so that's what makes the muscle tendons or muscles are not actually expanding and contracting in length. The length doesn't change. It's just like a rope, you know what I mean? Like you can pull a rope up here and it's going to make the distance that it covers shorter, but it isn't technically actually shortening the muscle. So the reason why we want to make sure that we're keen on what kind of stretches in our range of motion, and making sure that whatever stretches we're doing are in line with the range of motion that we're going to need for that day, is because when you're applying extra load to your body, you don't want to give yourself a false range of motion, or go too deep and actually compromise another part of your body in that kinetic chain that you're doing. So for instance, like if you're going to be doing overload squats, and you don't necessarily train to do really heavy ass to grass squats, or you're not necessarily trying to do heavy ass to grass squats that day, it's probably not going to be a good idea for you to do ass to grass squats in your warm-up, right? And getting a bunch of mobility in your vastus medialis, and a bunch of mobility in your Achilles, and a bunch of mobility in your lower back to warm up that day. It's probably not going to be a good idea, because those muscles are going to be sort of like falsely lengthened, right? They're going to be falsely loose and accustomed to a certain range of motion that you don't need them to be able to do that day, okay? So you'll be opening yourself up potentially for injury, and we don't want that. So I would say the most important thing to consider when you're doing dynamic stretches for an exercise is to do dynamic stretches that are going to be of the range of motion that you want to exemplify that day, and whatever range of however you're picking your range of motion, it should be in line with your program and your goals, and the injuries that you want to avoid, so on and so forth. I'm probably going to give you guys like a sample warm up, or like some kind of sample thing, so you know what I'm talking about. But generally speaking, we just want to make sure that we're warming up how we're going to be training. Okay. So again, that also means like, don't be necessarily doing a whole bunch of upper body mobility stuff if you're going to be doing squats, right? So like, I see sometimes people want to do like that PVC pipe stretch, and do that pec stretch whenever they're getting ready for squats, which makes sense because we want our hands to be able to comfortably be in a position where our chest isn't spazzing out too much. We actually want to be able to get our hands back on the bar comfortably, right? If our chest is too tight, then we might restrict that. So it does make sense to do some kind of chest stretching, or like thoracic mobility. That's these muscles back here, your spinal erectors, and back in that mid-back area. Now it does make sense to do some kind of stretching to be able to open that up, but do your hands need to be back here, right? Like, are my hands back here in a squat? No, so I probably don't have to go all the way down, right? So you could likely get away with just coming up right here behind your head and right back over. Personally, I don't do that stretch when I'm getting ready to train legs. I do some thoracic activation actually before I train legs, so I can make sure that I can actually squeeze those shoulder blades back strong, and make a good shelf for that bar to sit on. You know what I mean? But if I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of plyometric chest stretching or dynamic chest stretching down here, I have no business doing that. I don't need these muscles to be that loose, and that's another good point, right? So if I'm doing thoracic activation and squeezing my shoulder blades back, I'm naturally going to be stretching my chest. That doesn't mean that necessarily I want my chest to be off when I'm doing squats, right? I still want my chest to be able to kind of, I want that thoracic extension to be able to, or the thoracic flexion to be able to pull my chest, expand it, but I still want to be able to squeeze that bar forward with my chest and really pull it into my traps, right? And that way I can make sure that I actually got good bar control as I'm going down. So mind the stuff that you're doing. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. When you're doing static stretching towards the end of your exercises, it's really just a matter of making sure that you're kind of getting back to regular day mobility, right? So like if I'm doing a leg day, my hamstrings, your legs are going to be used to being in a closed position, right? After you've done squats, your hamstrings are likely going to be tight, your hip flexors are probably going to be tight, and so it's going to get you into this kind of position with a anterior hip tilt, right, in that lower back area. And then my knees, you can't really see it, but like my knee would be kind of cocked closed, right? And so when I'm doing a static stretch towards the end of my workout, and I don't really static stretch a whole lot, I'm gonna give you guys a quick tip on like kind of how to get around that if you don't have time. But when I'm static stretching, what I'm trying to do is get back to normal day posture, right? So your mobility and the stretches that you're doing when you're exercising should also represent what you need to be able to do on whatever that day is. So like whatever you do for life, to live, you know what I mean, to eat, and to whatever your job calls for, right? What you spend most of your day doing. Your mobility should kind of reflect and be additive to those things, right? So if you're sitting at a desk all day like most people are, you really got to make sure that you're doing a good postural stretches after a heavy compound day like back or deadlifts, like back day or like leg day, right? Because you want to make sure that you're going to go be sitting. You don't want to be too crouched to the point where you're actually building up tension and building up all these like misalignments, underactive, overactive muscles, and thus leading you to injury when you get back into the gym the next day. So your mobility should reflect the life that you live. Okay, so always remember that. That's like the capstone to this video is really about that, right? You don't need to be stretching too much if you don't need it. You know what I mean? And that's really important to be honest with yourself about. And then let your mobility reflect that. But some mobility is better than no mobility. So make sure you still prioritize your mobility. And yeah, just pretty much get after it. So I probably missed some stuff, but if you guys want to know more, if you have any specific questions, hopefully I said some stuff that's got you like, wondering like, oh, like what did he mean by that? Like, or I want to know more about this specifically. I'm not necessarily in the nature of like asking you guys to lead the content too much, but I do need your help in deciding like whether I'm actually hitting the stuff that's bringing you value or not, or if I'm like not explaining things a certain kind of way, because I want to be able to help you. But I'm not just going to be like, oh, tell me what you want to hear. No, I'm going to tell you stuff that you want to hear, but it's more so in a sense of like, I'm going to tell you the things that I think you need to know, things that I think you should know and you should prioritize, in your journey. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I don't got anything else for you. But yeah, that's mobility, that's stretching, that's dynamic, static stretching, like an intro to that kind of stuff. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you like it. Let me know if you have any other questions. Like I said, hopefully I inspired you, and hopefully I ticked some kind of like, like, I wonder what he's talking about with that. And so if I did, that's great. Please let me know what that is. And then just let me know in the comments down below. And then I'll start to, put something together and see if I can, make this like a little series, or just, be able to do another video and answer these questions for you guys. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, y'all. Talk soon. Peace.